a huge amount of potential and a lot of questions is the Los Angeles Angels. Obviously, a lot of things come into play when we talk about the stars of this team. You could say that they have two of the top five superstars in all of baseball with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Top five might even be a little bit too nice with that conversation. But let's start with Shohei Ohtani first. There's a lot of speculation that this could be his last year in an Angels jersey with this new conversation about the owner not selling the team. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But with Ohtani this season and being the potential fact that it could be his last as an Angel, do you think this is a year where he really steps up and proves himself even more? I don't even know if that's even possible when we're talking about him getting compared to Babe Ruth in some of his statistics he does. Or is this a season where maybe the speculation messes with him mentally? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't. Oh, man, it's tough to imagine him, going into another gear, right? Like he's already literally the best player on the planet. So I don't know that. I can't. I just can't imagine there being another gear as you enter free agency. But it will be interesting because I actually believe he won't be going to free agency. I think the Angels, if they're smart, would extend him now before the season even starts. It's going to cost, absolutely. But I mean, we're talking about not only an MVP bat, but a Cy Young pitcher, right? Like in one player. It's just too good to pass up. And if the Angels are smart, they would just lock him up right now, give him whatever he wants, because it'll wreck them if he departs at the end of the season. I mean, maybe they ride him, as best they can. And obviously, I don't think they're not going to try to extend him. I think they would be, foolish not to. So they're going to obviously explore it. But maybe this is the last year, because what would be even better than that is the free agent frenzy. In the winter, that is going to be insane, right? So I'm torn, but I would love to see them extend them, just for the fans of the team who've watched them kind of squander Mike Trout's the bulk of his career, right? So yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about Trout in just a second, but I mean, could you imagine if Ohtani goes to free agency, how wild that will be? I mean, remember the craziness of the Harper Machado free agency year. Ohtani would blow that out of the park. I mean, it would be absolutely insane. And we thought this year free agency was wild with all the money spent, DeGrom going elsewhere, Bogarts to San Diego, the Aaron Judge saga, Carlos Correa. I think if Ohtani goes to free agency next year, I don't know. We're gonna have to change the rules or something. It's gonna be completely nuts. It's gonna be absolutely wild. Jeff Passan is gonna have to stay up all night. We're gonna have to get him all the Diet Mountain Dew in the world.
So he's gonna get, and then where's the bar? What does he get? He's gonna see $500 million. Easily,
I think. Yeah.
It's insane.
I think so. I don't know. Age might mess with that just a slight, but I don't know. I think if anybody gets it, he'll get the $500 million. It's gonna be him or Soto that get the first $500 million contract. Whether they're going to give him a long enough deal to do so for Ohtani, I think he has a shot. But his AAV will match what a $500 million would look like if it was a long enough contract. That's where I'm going to go with that. But yes, completely agree. All right, let's talk about Mike Trout, who at one point had the biggest contract in MLB history. And I mean, he's had some injuries, and that's obviously what's really hurt this squad. We haven't seen this team make the playoffs in a very long time. One thing that I just can't wait to see is Mike Trout in the playoffs. Now Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs. I want to see that. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? Probably the other four teams in the AL West fans. But other than that, I think every single baseball fan would love to see those two guys in the playoffs. Mike Trout, we know he's a generational talent. Many could say he's the greatest that's played in this decade, and you probably wouldn't be so far off. I think obviously injuries has plagued that the last few seasons, but he still has, I mean, just amazing performance out there on the field. What's your thoughts about Mike Trout this year? You think he's going to be able to keep it all together? I'm sure we won't see him at 162, but you see him be able to hold up for at least 140, 150, and find a way to get this team in contention.
Yeah, I mean, he's projected to do, right? I think that's when it comes to a guy getting hurt, the thing, like, Trout doesn't necessarily have that kind of track record, even though he's missed time in every season since like even 2017 it was 114 games. 2021 obviously was only 36 games for him. um I don't think he has that label, but he's starting to get it, and that's I think why we kind of in our head we ask ourselves, how many games are they going to get out of Mike Trout? But I think he's projected to, and if he's healthy, look out because man, there isn't a better center fielder in baseball.
We talk about these two superstars on the team. Now we hear this report coming out that the owner of the Angels is no longer going to sell the team. I hear that that's not a good thing for Angels fans. They seem a little disappointed about that. What do you think that means for the hopefulness of this franchise moving forward? Do you think it has any woes about the Ohtani news? Although you seem a little hopeful about he'll get signed. There's a couple other free agents that are coming up that might be out the door. Is this a good sign for the Angels, you think, short term, or you think this is a bad thing?
So, I mean, obviously, as an outsider of the Angels organization, I look at it as Art Moreno kind of coming to his senses, right? Because if you're looking ahead, ownership is going to be a big question mark if you're looking ahead to next offseason, right? And it could be good if that ownership group is in place in enough time, but the longer it plays out, the less likely that is. And then that's just a cloud that hangs over your offseason. And if the Angels are looking ahead to next offseason, even if Ohtani hits it, and then everybody else who could be available, I think it's only a smart move just to say, like, what, like, let's come to our senses here. We're not going to sell the team and we're going to refocus our energies because we're that close. And I don't think they want that hanging over their head. So yeah, I think it could be a good thing. Whether Angels fans are like that or not remains to be seen, but I think it could be a good thing.
Let's put these two questions together. There's a lot of additions this year. This roster looks a lot different than the Joe Madden, who was fired in the middle of the season, team. This roster looks a lot different. Hunter Renfroe trade, that was a wild trade. I didn't see that one coming. I think that's a good sign for the Angels. Brandon Drury, as you mentioned, comes over in free agency. They trade for Gio Urshela, great utility player. Tyler Anderson comes into the rotation. I think that's a great asset. And so is Estevez, who comes over in free agency to help in the bullpen. I think that there is some pitching and bullpen woes. However, adding Anderson and Estevez does not hurt whatsoever. Let's talk about that pitching side for the Angels, and let's kind of focus on those additions that they add with everybody else in that lineup. What's your thoughts there? Do you think that that's good enough to keep up with this division?
No. And I only say that because of my very strong feelings toward, first of all, Gio Urshela and then Brandon Drury, right? Having both played for Toronto before they went elsewhere and then suddenly became the next Babe Ruth. Gio Urshela goes to New York and all of a sudden's hitting bombs left, right, and center, which, I mean, I guess it's Yankee Stadium, sure, but not like that. And then Brandon Drury captures all of Major League Baseball's attention with his performance last season. I don't see those two as what I think the Angels are hoping they are. I don't see them as those everyday solid day after day, a whole season's worth of positive contribution. And maybe that's just me refusing to accept the reality of those two. And then, with all due respect to them, I'm sure they're great guys, but I just don't see those type of moves as kind of pushing the Angels closer and closer to the division title or even a wild card spot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you answered one of my questions about, do you think this team can finally get in the playoffs? I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know if they can. I mean, you could always have to put them in contention if you have a healthy Mike Trout and a healthy Shohei Ohtani. But I think there's a lot of other question marks too. I think we're not even going to really scrape the surface with this in this preview. We're going to have a lot more to talk about in the weeks to come when we get to spring training. I think the last biggest question I have for you, Sean, is Anthony Rendon. Obviously, what he had in Washington was amazing. I mean, what he did in Washington was outstanding. It got him to get the bag when he went over to Anaheim to get paid and play well. He was great until he got hurt. He flashes signs of the glove and does great defensive things until he gets hurt. With the exception of being healthy, what will it take for him to get back to all-star caliber play? Because it's there. He has it.
Yeah, I think that his overall, like everything, I guess, just his offense needs to be better, like, or at least it needs to be what they thought it was going to be when he was hitting 25, 34 home runs here, getting on base at almost 400 clip. Like, that's the kind of thing that they were hoping he would be. Where last year and even in 2021, he was below league average with the bat, obviously 58 games. But again, we're talking about assuming health. He needs to get back to that full season, first of all, of baseball, but then when he was putting up 140, 150 weighted runs created plus, those are the kind of things that he has to get back to. If the Angels, if he can do that, it's going to give them a much better shot at a wild card spot, or even, the division.
Yeah, when you talk about these wildcard spots, I got to keep remembering that there's that extra spot because my
Mm.
mindset always just thinks about just the two available. So having that extra one seems like the Angels always come in mind for me. And that comes to this next question with the over under 73 and 89 last year. They obviously had a terrible stretch. This was a team that was leading the AL West at one point last year. Remember that? And that kind of all fell apart right before the deadline. They got rid of players. And it was just an awful stretch. They made up for it towards the end of the season. They ended on they won 7 of their last 10 games, but it wasn't enough. 73 wins is what they got last year. Are they going to be over or under in 2023?
They'll be over that, but they won't be over 500.
Ooh, all right, I like that. I'm
Yeah.
going to take the over as well. And you know what? I think I'll agree with you as well. I think they'll be close to it. I think an 80 win threshold is where I'll see the Angels this coming season.